Thank you for tuning in to the SkillsAware podcast. We are a human-centered, AI-powered skills recognition engine transforming how people and organizations understand and grow their capabilities. Each episode features insightful conversations with industry leaders, experts, and innovators who share their knowledge, experiences, and ideas on workforce skills, skills recognition, skills literacy, artificial intelligence, and so much more.
So for those who aren't aware, this is a continent-spanning webinar. We have folks for whom it is between 2 and 5 p.m. on Tuesday, May 5th. That would include myself and my Education Design Lab colleagues, but also our Edalex friends and partners. And it is 7 a.m. Wednesday, May 6th, in where you are at today. Yes, so we are spanning time zones and continents, and there's coffee, and we are all good. That's right. Hold it up. Hold it up. It may be 3 p.m. here, but I am also still drinking coffee. Okay. Well, I will go ahead and kick us off. So thank you to all who have joined us for today's webinar, The Learner Voice and Why Skills Visibility Matters. You are joined today by 3 primary facilitators whose headshots you can see on the screen, and even more importantly, our special guests, which are the learners. So briefly, I am Tara Laughlin, Senior Director of Skills Visibility with Education Design Lab. We're a national nonprofit based in the US. And I'm joined by my colleague, Nishita Cheda. She is a mixed methods researcher and designer also with Education Design Lab, and the lovely Margot Griffith, Principal Skills Consultant with SkillsAware and Edalex. So thank you both ladies for being here to speak today. We have 2 learners and 1 partner who works very closely with learners to share with you all today about 2 different approaches to skills visibility that our respective organizations have been testing and piloting over the past several years. So you'll get to hear a little bit about 2 different use cases and 2 different approaches to helping make learners' skills visible today. So use case 1, as I'll call it, is a project based out of Education Design Lab that is called XCredit, and that stands for Experience Credit. And the thank you to Walmart here is just a recognition of the fact that the work that myself and Nishita will be speaking about today was funded by Walmart.org and our amazing program officers, Patty and Sean. So thank you to them. Next slide, please. All right. When you first look at this slide, you may be struck by the fact that this is a lot of logos. And even more impressively than the fact that it's a lot of logos is the fact that behind these logos are a lot of technologies that were integrated, yes, actually integrated, to make the XCredit use case, skills visibility use case possible. So you can see around the outside, Education Design Lab, we were sort of the lead organization on this project, but we connected tools and technologies from D2L, a learning management system, the wonderful Edalex, who you'll get to hear a lot more from Margot about today. Muzzy Lane, our assessment provider, Unicon as our technical experts, Credly on badging and credentialing, and Smart Resume as a digital tool, resume kind of learner wallet technology. And this was all in service of making learners' durable skills visible. So in the center of that circle, if you squint, maybe you can read the fine print, you'll see that those are some of the lab's micro-credentials for a variety of durable skills, including things like collaboration, critical thinking, and initiative. So at the lab, the future state that we are driving toward, and this project is a key contributor toward, is what we call a validated skills-based ecosystem. So we read a lot and we hear a lot about the skills-based ecosystem or the skills-first hiring, skills-first approaches. And we put the word validated in blue here just to say it's not just about being skills-based, it's about being validated skills-based as a a means to make learner skills visible. And so what that means is, and you can see in the center of this graphic, we've got our credentials, we have our learning programs, we have our hiring processes, and there's skills data flowing through all of these systems. That needs to be good, trustworthy, reliable skills data. And one of the key ways to make that happen is through what we call skills validation. You may think of that as assessment, and assessment is definitely one way of validating skills, but there's a whole host of other ways to approach that as well. All right, so how do we get there? How do we make the skills validated and visible? In the XCredit project, in the top left corner here, what you can see is the design question that we kicked off with almost 4 years ago now, which is how might we validate and credential existing skills to make learners and earners more visible in the talent marketplace? So that existing skills, that is key. We were looking to add some automation and basically infuse with technology kind of the RPL process, the recognition of prior learning process. And so as a part of doing that, we developed the skills ecosystem with those technology partners. We formed the skills validation network. So on the top right, you can see just a plug for our skills validation network, our community of action. And over the years, we've been working through the lab's design process to better understand and prototype solutions to this question. So what you're going to see today, and actually what you're going to hear about through the experience of two of our learners, is what did this integrated learner experience feel like, right? Moving from, let's say, a career navigation platform into an LMS, learning management system, into an assessment technology, into a badging platform with the Edalex technology running on the back end and connecting all of the dots together into the learner wallet. What was that learner experience actually like, navigating all of these integrated systems in order to reach that goal of skills visibility? The screenshots here do tell a story, but they're kind of small. So you'll hear more a little bit later that kind of walks you through that journey. Next slide, please. And this is another look at what the learner did. So the steps across the top just kind of show you what the pathway looked like. Entering into our XCredit system, choosing the competency that they wanted to validate based on their prior experience, using our validation and assessment opportunities to actually validate those skills, earning credentials for their validated skills, having a smart resume account automatically created for them, receiving notification of that, claiming their validated skills and their newly awarded credentials, which were all ported automatically into their smart resume learner wallet, and then being able to drill down into those skills and credentials with the help of the Edalex Credentialate platform to view the evidence record to better understand what it was they had to do to earn that credential. Next slide, please. And at this point, I am going to pass it to Margot.
Thanks, Tara. Can everyone hear me okay? We are good?
Yep.
Lovely to be with you this morning. I have had 4 sips of coffee, so if I'm not making any sense, I will have more sips of coffee to rectify that problem. We have been working with the Amazing Education Design Lab for a long time on this very, very wicked problem. And I want to say that Tara has been using the word ecosystem a few times, and it truly is that. There's not one lens of perception on skills visibility and a skills first approach to that learn to earn journey for learners, right? It's going to take the village. And we are part of that village from a technology lens. Edalex is an Australian technology company, and we have been hyper-focused on this issue around how can we make skills visible from the learner perspective not from the institution or the organization perspective, although that happens by default. But if we design from a learner perspective, what does that look like to be able to tell your story of what you know and can do? And not just what you know from formal learning, what you know from your lived experience. And so that's the wicked problem we have been working on. As Tara indicated, we're kind of the plumbers that sit underneath. We don't want to be recognized. We do not want you to know we are there. And if the learners know we are there, that's a problem, because what we want to do is make that a seamless process. And so Education Design Lab, many of the people that I know are watching this webinar, Edalex, we have all been wanting to change the narrative around where did you go to school as the proxy and the prompt for hiring, to what skills do you have, and can you articulate those to me in that hiring process, and can you show it in a way that is trustworthy and has proof. And both of those words, trust and proof, mean it got to have some evidence, right? There has to be some evidence underneath this claim that you're making around skills. And that's kind of what we do as well. So just up here, you know, when you do change that narrative, suddenly it unlocks a whole raft of opportunities. Your confidence, the mobility, your capabilities to follow non-traditional pathways into formal learning, if that's what you want, fairer hiring practices, and really, when we get to that other point, more efficient reskilling. So that shift in that narrative, that paradigm shift is what we're all working towards, and it has to happen because it's an economic imperative, not just in the United States, not just in Australia, but globally. It's kind of a non-negotiable that we make this shift. Next slide, please. Right. So, do you have a story to tell? I know we all do. And our story moves way beyond our transcript, way beyond the signals that our formal learning gives us, and way beyond really our resume. So how do we make that a holistic view of you? Edalex has been working on the wicked problem of skills visibility for a while, but just recently we formed a new entity called XCredit. And we were able to do that because AI got to the point where we could really use it effectively to do all that hard work, the hard mapping, all of the work that was way too difficult in the past, to bring that evidence that you have and map that against something that is standardized, quality assured, and understood as a common language between, I guess, education, yourself, and employers. And that is a framework or a taxonomy or some sort of common language skills library that we all understand, that when we say, I've got this, we know what that is, right? Next slide, Zooey. So just quickly moving through this is what SkillsAware looks like. It essentially is an AI-powered evidence tool so that you can have this conversation with the AI, you can upload your evidence, and it is mapping against a referenced database of skills. In Australia, we're doing that against, at the moment, the Australian training packages, but we can do that. Say if we're working in the US, we would use a different framework. If we're using for a specific industry, we would use those industry standards. So it's very flexible in the way that we can move through and reference these skills. Next slide, Zooey. This is just a little view around how you would interact with that AI engine, and then it keeps on coming up with a list of suggested skills, and then you can choose which ones you want to interrogate and look at further. Yeah, we don't want to spend too much time on this because I was just setting the scene for when Emily talks. She's one of our initial piloters of SkillsAware, so I'm fascinated to hear how she feels, how her learners, her staff feel around using some of this new technology around skills recognition, skills visibility, and skills validation. Next one. We won't go into that because really it's not about the technology. That webinar is about what it looks like for the people that are utilizing it, right? We know that underneath this is what's happening. Learners are taking a survey, they're guided through an AI conversation, we're gathering all their evidence, and we're mapping it to give some sort of output. Now, that output can be a report, it can be a digital credential, it could be a data feed into a HR system, it could be lots of things. And we have kept it deliberately very flexible in that regard. Next slide, Zui. I think that's actually the end of that one. So having said all of that, I am really keen to hear actually from the stars of the show. So I am going to pass this over to Nishida and the wonderful Tamara and Monique.
Thanks, Margot. It's so helpful to see like the hidden gears behind the system that we don't usually see as learners or even facilitators. So thank you for the little glimpse into that. And I still very strongly believe that a system is only as good as the value it provides to the people who are using it. So I'm super, super excited to just pivot from the how to the who. In our work on XCredit, I've had the chance to speak to multiple users and to help bring some of those real life human experiences in this space. I'm so honored to be joined by two incredible, and I know we've been saying learners, but it's really learners earners because there's these people have all most of our users are both learners, and like I'm a constant learners, but we're also earners. So I just want to make that little call out. But I'll do a quick intro, but I love Monique and Tamara to introduce. I want you to have the space to introduce yourself. But yeah, Monique, we have Monique here from Hire Heroes USA. She's a military spouse, and Hire Heroes USA is one of our partners, and Tamara is one of our users from Generation. She's a Generation Hope Scholar. And I'd love for both of you to introduce yourselves, but Monique, do you want to go first?
Sure. So first off, I'd like to say thank you so much for having me today. I certainly love these types of think tank discussions that move the needle forward. This is certainly a great platform, especially when you consider kind of the rise of AI and just expansive learning at our fingertips. And so, as Nishida mentioned, I'm a military spouse. I am actually also a PhD. I have a PhD in business management, and professionally, my background has not really spanned the gamut for a military spouse, which is kind of contra stereotype. I have for several years specifically done risk management, most recently kind of delved into the nonprofit space. After nonprofit is when I connected with Hire Heroes and, took a couple of different competency modules and came across XCredit. And so that's a little bit about me. From San Diego, but currently in the National Capital Region, and just super happy to kind of see where this discussion takes us today.
Thank you, Monique. And Tamara, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Tamara Shaheen. Thank you for having me here. I'm from New York and live in Maryland in the United States. I currently attend Coppin State University and am studying early childhood human development and have an associate in early childhood education. And right now I'm a pre-K teacher and a mom of a preschooler. And so those experiences led me through Generation Hope to be here today. So I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
Thank you both. And yeah, just to provide some more context around XCredit and what that experience looks like for someone who enters is XCredit is a skills validation platform, and when Tamara and Monique essentially join the platform, they see a host of durable skills that the lab provides, and then they're able to see essentially that they have all of these skills and they just need to go and take some assessments and validate them, and then they end up earning a credential for that. That's just some context for people on this call who may not fully know what XCredit was, but I'm going to jump into two questions, and we'll do like a panel style with you, Monique and Tamara. And so our first question for both of you is, so we've been on this call, we've been talking about skills visibility as a concept. But as people who experienced a skills validation process, how did it actually feel to see you have these multiple life experiences? And so many of these stay invisible, right? Like even skills that you've gained from like being a military spouse, from being a parent, from being a teacher, from, being a PhD holder. Like there are so many skills that we have. We've gained them through like a host of life experiences. And so many of these are invisible. And yeah, just like having a platform where you were able to validate them, how does it feel to have like a valid, verified currency essentially in your hands?
I can go first. Can you all hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So I will say that from a practical sense, a resume can only hold so much. Traditionally, the expectation is that it's 2 pages, no more than 2 pages, kind of straight to the point. Highlighting your core and foundational skills. And so from that perspective, it's extremely helpful to have a platform where there's a URL where, someone can click and kind of discover and validate what your skills are, in addition to or in supplemental of what your resume says. In addition, oftentimes when you're taking, different courses or different modules that allow you to enhance your skills, you may be delving into a skill that's not necessarily a job title or necessarily something, that specifically the employer is looking for, but in the good to have qualities or preferred qualities, the credentials can touch on that. And so again, while you have your standard resume that can only highlight, what your professional summary is, what your core skills are, what you've done in the past, maybe some volunteerism on there, that and within 2 pages, having a link that an employer can click on your resume to see that yes, they've done this, but then also they've upskilled in this way. They're showing initiative to not only stay complacent professionally or personally, from a formal education standpoint. It's been extremely helpful in that regard.
Thank you for sharing, Monique. Yeah, I think we've heard from so many people about like, how can we kind of see people as a whole versus like a 2-page resume concept. And you touched upon that so beautifully. So thank you. Tamara, how did that experience feel for you?
I think for me, having the skills validation was very affirming for me, especially because when I was going through my very first job interviews, I didn't have the traditional schooling background. I had my daughter when I was 19 and I was still in school. So I took a gap. I didn't finish, and I took that year to take care of her. Those types of gaps in a resume to a lot of employers can be telling, which is not the right kind of telling. It's more so negative toward you. And my argument is that, that year taught me the most valuable skills that are super transferable to any workplace that I could be part of, whether it is handling my relationships with my colleagues, parents in my class, my students, especially in my profession, parenting is incredibly, incredibly a powerful tool that allows me to connect with all of these different people. So having something that allows me to validate those types of skills in a way that is transferable and applicable to my profession is very useful and makes it very validating and visible for me. So
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And yeah, I think it's so important how like validation can also like we so many of us have non-linear backgrounds, like we've taken gap years, we've taken like a year off for parenting, and like having those gaps be viewed in a certain way, but having the opportunity to fill them up in a different way is great. And thank you for touching on that. So my second question for both of you is, once the skills that you had were validated, was there an aha moment for you, like through that process of validation? I know Tamara and I have spoken about this a little bit, but even just going through a validation process be, you know, can be very interesting. It can give you insight in interesting ways. So I'd love to hear from both of you if it changed the way you see yourself, your own path, about what you do or you can do.
I can go. I will say one thing that was very eye-opening for me were the offering of courses. Generally, you think from a professional standpoint, you have to take a course in cybersecurity or CompTIA or project management or AI, which lately I've been doing a lot of those as well. But in the XCredit library, it was soft skills like critical thinking and analysis, collaboration, a lot of areas that I feel for anybody can sometimes become blind spots because you throughout the day feel as though these are skills that are inherent of your personal nature, and so you feel you don't have to refine them or brush up on them. I think when people think about credentialing, they automatically think about upskilling in the sense of some type of um, professional role. And so for me, when I think that, my critical thinking is to par because of my formal education or what have you, and that you take one of these courses and you see that there's a gap, in this particular area, and it shows you the percentage and it kind of weights it against the other areas that you have mastered. It was extremely helpful to see that, while I may be very well at like project management, like to kind of touch on what Tamara said, taking that gap period and caring for home, and even as a military spouse, like we do planning, budgeting, scheduling, I can go on.
Yeah.
And employers don't oftentimes see like domestic engineering as viable skills, but they very much are. And they're very much transferable in the workplace. And so again, to my point, without going on a tangent, what XCredit provides in terms of enhancing or refining your soft skills is incredible.
Thank you for sharing. I was like plus one to everything you said. Tamara, do you want to share a little bit about, yeah, those aha moments for you?
I think through this process, I realized a lot about the way I view my skills and how these skills might also look different to different people, and depending on the context. If I'm validating a particular skill, like whether it's resilience or empathy or all of these other types of skills that are applicable on a resume, I realized that I didn't think about how you can be empathetic in so many different ways and how that might be perceived by different people. And it really highlighted the variety of relationships that I build in my workplace and how I communicate with people and how that is going to be different across the board, and trying out these different scenarios over and over and figuring out, how am I communicating with people was very interesting for me, and taught me a lot about like what these skills even mean, and how I perceived it might be this one linear, very narrow way to view a particular skill. So it was very informative as well as useful for me.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I do want to touch upon this like insight we've been gaining for a while now about around skills validation, that yes, like the credential may help directly throughout one's career, but there is so much value in validating your skills and the personal recognition and confidence and like change of vocabulary and insight it can bring to you. And yeah, both Monique, Tamara, you both touched on that. So thank you. It's really validating to hear that again and again, as well as we keep kind of understanding and working in this world of skills visibility as well. Um, Margot, do I have 5 more minutes, or should wh- I want to make sure we have time for Emily as well?
I think we've got time. If you've got one more question, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to ask like a non-X credit, but like an open-ended, what would a perfect, like ideal world look like where everyone's skills are visible? And Tamara and Monique, if you guys have like any, just like a magic wand idea of like that would be great to make skills more visible in this world that we're living in. We would love to kind of end there.
When I was looking at one of the slides that kind of showed the bubbles around the page, it made me think of, I know right now Google has a platform, I forgot what it's called, but it's workspace design. I forgot what it's called, but you plug in keywords and it shoots out bubbles of different like areas in which are your strengths, areas that are your weakness. You can make a Venn diagram and kind of understand like where you can upskill, and those jobs that fit, or volunteer opportunities that fit in accordance with kind of the map. And I forgot what that particular illustration is called, so I apologize in advance. In a perfect world, it would be nice to be able to have your own page, so kind of like the LinkedIn page, but with kind of your profile picture in the middle with the bubbles of all the skills that you've credentialed and validated, um, and gotten some badge for. So it's kind of like a one pager where any individual, if you're networking after work, or if you're for a job interview, or if you're running a company, the person can see kind of an illustrative image of exactly, what your strengths are, how you've upskilled, how you've reskilled. Because I'm a very visual person, and reading something like reading a resume in 10 font is great, but like if I could just pinpoint immediately this for this individual, like for me, that would be ideal.
That's amazing. I love that idea. It's so much like a skills passport, and which is like something that the industry talks about as well, but I love that. Tamara, any closing magic wand ideas from you?
Um, Somewhat like Monique's response, I kind of imagine um, clips of where I might demonstrate these types of skills in real time. Of course, that could be an invasion of privacy in some ways, but at the same time, it's I don't know. I like to be imaginative, but also I would want to include where I see myself and what my goals are and where I want to be at, because I also recognize that um, my my skills are still developing, even still, and so I want I would want to be able to highlight, how I want to continue to grow on this path, and how I would be an asset in that regard, even though I might not be entirely where I want to be yet.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, so much of like a double click to all of our skills are still developing, still growing, we're still learning, we're still earning. And, there's so much work that we need to do in this space of making those skills that we're constantly developing more visible. So I love that. And yeah, I just wanted to thank both of you for just these amazing insights and ideas that y'all have shared in this space together today. Thank you. And
Thank
I'll
you.
pass it to Margot.
Thank
Well,
you.
that was a non-rehearsed, excuse me, non-rehearsed but amazing segue. Tamara and Monique, thank you for that. Because I think what I was hearing is that our skills are not a static snapshot in time, right? They're developing all the time, and we need a way to be able to share how we're evolving and what that looks like. And some really useful tips if I put the technology hat on to go, if we're developing digital wallets and passports, what should that look like from a learner perspective? So thank you for that. That's amazing. I will turn over now to Emily, who has been with us from 7 a.m. in the morning. And thank you, Emily, again for being here. Emily has been a wonderful partner of us at SkillsAware, the new venture I was talking about. And I'm very keen to hear from her why on earth she would jump in like that with us, and what prompted her to do that. So I'm going to turn over to you, Emily, just to introduce yourself, and then I'm going to pepper you with some questions.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everybody. Thanks. Despite the early hour, I promise it's more than fine. So I am the CEO of an organization called Joblin Plus. We are a not-for-profit. We've existed for around 40 years, and in one way or another. And our primary thing that we do is deliver services on behalf of the Australian government. So we have a range of contracts, both federal and state. But it's the people that work for us. We've got about 380 folks working for us, and our main thing, the front line, if you like, is employment services support. So the communities that we serve, the people that we serve, are on an income support payment from the government, and they are participating with a service provider like us to engage, build their skills, and progress towards employment. And the frontline role is to coach that person, to help them progress towards employment, identify their employment goals and things like that. So that little snapshot of our staff there. The people that we work with, so we have around 15,000 clients spread across regional New South Wales. So I often say, so from our most easterly community that we work with to the other way around, easterly to westerly, there's 1,100 kilometres or 680 miles or 13 hours drive from our east to west. And from the north to the south, it's about 9 hours as well. And we cover 82 communities across that expanse. So it's great work. We love it, as I say. Margo, you asked me to talk about why I sort of said, let's do this thing. Do you want me to jump into that, or
Jump right into it. I guess
Yeah.
before we jump into why you did it, what was the challenge that sort of led to that? Like what prompted that?
A couple of things without getting too much into the specifics of the Australian context, I suppose. But our industry, our sector has been privatised for a little while, and it's subject to quite a bit of scrutiny at different times. But when the unemployment rate goes up, there's more scrutiny. But one of the things that our government has been talking about is this idea of the professionalisation of the industry. Which ultimately means that they introduce a qualification, and everyone has to get the qualification. So historically, that's happened quite a bit in Australia, in children's services, in aged care, financial services, lots of things. It seems to be the go-to lever for our government when they want to professionalise an industry. They say, right, This is the minimum benchmark. This is the qualification. And one of the great strengths and why I think the government goes to that in Australia is because we have really, I think, a pretty world-class qualifications framework, a national qualifications framework. It's not perfect, but it's pretty great. And the idea is that you can get a qualification in where I am and then go to any other part of Australia and it's recognised, right? So that's why a qualification is kind of a go-to lever for the government or for a regulator, that sort of thing. So we had this sense and a lot of indications from our government and our contract providers that we were going to have to attain these qualifications. So I sort of we've got that happening in the bigger context, and then we have, I think, the understanding that many Australians and Australian workers really value education. Australian workers, you know, when they do surveys about what sort of things people ask employers when they're going for a job interview, you know, the classic, so is there anything you'd like to ask us? Most Australians say, what are the career opportunities here? What learning and development is available to me? Australians value education as a whole. And so I was conscious of that demand, if you like, from our government, combined with a workforce that, generally speaking, want to learn, want to not only have more skills and not necessarily have a qualification, but genuinely want to learn how to do their job better. And I think we have a pretty good learning culture at JobLink, and so I wanted to make the most of that.
I guess, Emily, one of the things and thank you for laying that out so clearly, many of your workers would have already been doing this job, right? And so, you know, to a certain extent, the government saying we've got to have a stamp of a qualification on top of that is kind of like, well, hey, hang on, been doing this for 20 years. Why do I need to start again and go through that qualification, right? I can, if I was that worker thinking, I'm sorry, I've got all these skills already. Does that play into some of your thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. As a sector, we have quite a bit of churn in the first 6 months, but otherwise it's the kind of job that people do for a long time. At JobLink, we've got people who've been doing that job for genuinely 25 years. And our organisation has a lot of people who've been here a long time, and it's I think so. 80% of our workforce is female as well. It is a caring kind of role, and it's a very people-oriented role. And you know, I think when it comes to often gendered roles as well, then you have this layer of people who don't always have the opportunity to gain formal qualifications, or, as Tamara so beautifully spoke to, there are gaps in our work, in our time at work, even as women, for lots of different reasons, usually because we're caring for other people. And so I think this idea that there would be an imposition or a need to gain something that didn't recognise that and didn't say, okay, we need you to do this, but also we acknowledge that you have a breadth of experience that goes beyond what you've done at the desk and what you've done in the workplace. So that was really important. And I think while we have JobLink has around 65% of our workforce have some sort of vocational qualification. We haven't always been great at marrying up, I think, what we know is to be the durable skills with the recognised qualification skills. So that was one of the huge appeals of what SkillsAware was doing, to be able to. I really was keen as a CEO for it to feel like a very affirming process for the teams, that it would centre them as a learner, that our teams would hear that this is something that really is about your whole self that you can bring to the experience. It isn't only about the work that you've done here, it's also about who you are as a person. So that was really important. And I really wanted the big takeaway to be that this process, this journey, if you like, to have your skills recognised will go with you. Whether you choose to stay with us or move on to another role, it's who you are and who you are as a learner and as a lifelong learner.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So how's it going? I know it's super early days.
It is.
And I'm asking this question with the world watching.
Yeah.
But how's it going? Like how How's the
From
early
my
week?
perspective, it's going brilliantly, and I'm hoping that that the teams are feeling that as well. Certainly, I haven't had anyone tell me otherwise, which is always a good sign, right? I think there was a genuine, like, we put out the expression of interest, and my inbox just started pinging, which was lovely. Though the feel was that there wasn't a lot of hesitation. I was really conscious of launching it in a way that made the opportunity feel very accessible. My background is training in education, so to be fair, Mel knows this. It's my comfort zone to talk about lifelong learning and adult education and accessibility and things like that. So I think that helped. I did a video for the team to help explain the project and outline everything that would happen. And there was, a lot of enthusiasm, lots of people sort of emailing, thank you for the opportunity. And then we did the sort of first information session and induction session, and I joined that as well, just to again affirm from a leadership perspective to say this is something that we are invested in. We're really keen to make it work, and I think I think our teams as well have heard from me quite a bit about our keenness as an organisation to invest in development over the next 12 months in particular, to reinvest in staff. And so it's going great. We really needed something, and it was so important to me that it had to work for a range of people. It couldn't only work for people who lived in this town. And that's something that we apply that lens to a lot of decisions that we make at JobLink Plus. If it needs to work for the folks who work in the town of 500 people, as well as the folks who work in the town of 500,000 people. So, or the city. So something that was accessible in that way was really important. And as much as I value classroom-based education, that as a solution isn't always going to be the best one for our teams. So that was really imperative. And I think the accessibility of the program and of the platform is serving really well in that regard.
Awesome. And I'm conscious I want to leave some time for Q&A at the end, but I have one request, is that I glossed over what SkillsAware does really early on. And I'm just wondering if you can just walk people through what your employees are doing with SkillsAware and what you're hoping the outcome will be.
Yeah, sure. So we there's a particular qualification, a certificate for in employment services that is currently under review. And so what our teams are doing is, and we've delivered that internally, and we had a kind of set of skills and topics and themes that we mapped and said, this is what we'd like you to choose from. But basically, we've got a group of 20 learners who said, yep, I want to have my skills recognised. And we went for people who had worked in the job for 2 years or more. So we specifically chose people who, and I said, it's okay if you've got a qualification already, but not this one. And we specifically wanted to offer it to people who had some skills, and what I sort of say, skills that you get through peopling, not necessarily by reading a book, or as much as those skills are great, but there are a bunch of skills that we gain in life. And I love that what Monique shared about the domestic engineering, right? They're home and family-based skills, or just skills you get because you work with people all day long. And those are really actually incredible skills, and to have those recognised was really important. So the team, have basically got 5 weeks or so, I think, to think about all the different evidence that they can collect and put in the system. They've got weekly check-ins with the team at SkillsAware, which has been great. But it all started because I heard Yasmin talking about this project, and she spoke so passionately about her and her team's commitment to seeing skills for life recognised and validated, and doing that in ways that were accessible and innovative. And it just went from there basically. And the SkillsAware team was so great and very patient with me, and we're curious about what we did, and we're just and remain endlessly helpful, and they're just trying to make it work for the learners and having that the student and the outcome in mind, where basically the learner will be able to go, I feel seen, I feel validated, I've got a qualification that I can take with me. And it hasn't only been about the job that I do, but it's about the person that I am.
I'm going to leave on that quote because I think it's it's a soundbite. That's fantastic. Emily, thank you for sharing that, and thank you to Monique and Tamara too for sharing your experiences as well. I do note that there is a question in the Q&A that I think is probably right up Tara's alley. So can you see that one, Tara? Yeah. Do you want to read it out and then give your answer?
I would be happy to.
Thank you, Tara.
All right. The question says, can you walk us through the assessment piece in skills validation, both through the experiences of the learners, but also the assessment methodology in validating durable skills? I can talk about this topic for hours, but I won't. So I'm going to do my best to keep it concise for you. So I'll share my screen, and I'm actually going to zoom into that learner journey graphic that was a little difficult probably to see when I was presenting earlier. Okay. So again, this is part of the XCredit initiative, Education Design Lab. And we brought together all of the different technologies that I mentioned earlier to facilitate this experience. And so I'll just walk through a series of images that kind of give you a sense of what the learner journey through the platforms, plural, looked like. So through partnerships, two represented here today, you saw Generation Hope and Hire Heroes USA, among others. Earners gain access to XCredit. So they begin on a screen like this, where they're prompted to create an account and start validating their skills. From there, this is a blurry image of what the second stage of that process looks like. And when they get into the platform, they are shown a dashboard that looks like this. And what you can see are a series of tiles. They are blurry. I apologize for that. I'm zoomed way in here, but each of these 9 tiles represents a different durable skill that we define and measure at Education Design Lab. So there are things like intercultural fluency, collaboration, initiative, and depending on the partner organization that a learner comes through, they may see all 9 of these competencies on their dashboard, or they may see a subset of these 9, perhaps 2 or 3 or 5, depending on what the partner organization wanted. And so the learner then gets to choose based on their lived experience and their sense of where their competencies are, which of these they want to pursue. So they'll click on the tile of their choice. This on the right-hand side is a tracker. And so as learners are validating their skills, these trackers light up to show their progress of how many skills they validated and how close they are to earning a micro-credential in any of these areas. So once they choose their competency, that competency page loads. So here we're in the resilience competency. And there are a series of short assessments embedded on that page. So the resilience competency in the labs framework has 4 sub-competencies and therefore 4 short assessments. The first of those 4 assessments is called exhibit flexibility. So there's a little bit of introductory content on this page about what the skill is and all of the criteria that are going to be evaluated in the assessment. So learner still has a chance to, double check that with their expectations and decide whether they want to proceed. So they click on a button to launch the assessment, which then does take them into another platform. And this is the Muzzy Lane platform. You can see this is set up with an image panel on the right, a text chat panel on the left, and they're given a workplace-based scenario. In this case, it looks like we're in a restaurant environment, and a role to play and a problem to solve. And they have to navigate their way through that scenario, interacting with a cast of characters to reach a conclusion. When they're done, their results automatically pop up on the screen. So this, again, apologies, is very blurry, but you can see that they demonstrated mastery of these different criteria within the assessment. That data transfers back into the LMS platform. Again, this for us is D2L's Brightspace, where a notification shows that that data came back in, the skill was validated, and an award was earned. The award triggers the creation of their smart resume. So they receive an email notification, which looks like this. And if they want to access their smart resume, they can come and activate their account. And it builds them out. Again, think of this kind of as like a learner wallet, a profile that looks like this. It is bringing in all of their digital credentials with all of the metadata that lives inside that. So not just JPEG or PNG images, but real rich credentials. And then if they click on one of those credentials, this is the evidence layer or the evidence record that is provided through the plumbing for us by Edalex. And it gives more information about what the skill is and how that credential was earned. And so that is a really fast look at the learner experience overall. And I know your question was about the assessment design as well, and some of the, I think, validity and reliability components, which is a bit of a longer conversation, but I'm always happy to have a follow-up with more detail about that if you'd like.
That's awesome. Thank you, Tara, for that. We've got just a couple of minutes left. I'm wondering if there's any questions for anyone, either from our participants, if you pop it in chat or pop it in Q&A, or from any of us here on screen to anyone else.
I know Nishita wanted to tee up the publication as well, so maybe while folks are typing.
Yeah. It's also such a good segue because Tara just showed a glimpse into what the learner journey looks like. But I wanted to share that the Education Design Lab is coming up with a report called Validating Skills at Scale, a Human and Tech Ecosystem View, and we're releasing it in late May. And it essentially examines this idea that for skills visibility to take place, we must look at the human and tech component together and not in isolation. And it's about how the ecosystem must come together while we center the learner, but how it must come together at both those levels to create kind of this possibility that we're all talking about. And it lays out some recommendations from both the learner and the human side, as well as the tech side. What is the data requirements? What needs to be in place for this system to work? And so, yeah, we're very excited, and we hope that everyone gets a chance to read it. And it uses the example of XCredit, but it really is an insight into, what an ideal skills validation system, an ecosystem could look like.
I, for one, am so excited to read that report. So please do let everybody know when that's available for download. I think you touch on, and that report will definitely highlight, it's all very well to start thinking about skills literacy and skills recognition, skills validation, and to ultimately think about skills-based hiring and skills-based education. But all of that requires a deliberate strategy around your data architecture, because if you can't move the data, you actually can't move the people either. And so in this world, it's kind of a non-negotiable as well, that it's a it's a twin track strategy. You've got your you have your mission and your pillars, but if you don't have a deliberate data architecture strategy underneath, it's not going to scale. It's not going to go anywhere anytime fast. So anyway, I will leave that. Anybody else if I throw out, because I'm doing a lot of talking here. We all good? We are at the hour. In fact, we are over the hour. So if not, I want to thank you all so much for being a part of this, particularly our stars, Tamara, Monique, Emily, thank you so much. And yeah, I just want to say a heartfelt thanks to Education Design Lab, who have been, partners forever. Yeah, long may we tackle this wicked problem of skills recognition is what I say.
You're here.
Back
You're
at
here.
you.
Have a wonderful afternoon / evening / morning / day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for tuning into this SkillsAware podcast episode. Don't forget to follow us on your podcast app so you don't miss a thing, and be sure to visit our website at skillsaware.com to learn more.